Let's be honest. If we are married, we have at least a few times in our life considered divorce. Hi, I'm Gina. Here at Hope and Cope, we talk about the essential skills we need to have our best life in spite of painful and sometimes even tragic life events and situations. You know, I would have thought I was a little smarter than this, but I am going to wade in on the delicate topic of divorce today. The primary reason that I'm going to talk about divorce today is because in my specific story with my husband, I chose to stay during his addiction. And we are still married. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. And I feel like that because I encourage people that they can make this choice if they want, they can stay if that's the right choice for them, that maybe I'm endorsing a certain path for, in a generic sense, for everyone across the board, when that is not necessarily the case. So my story specifically deals with addiction, but there are countless reasons why two people could come to conclusions that they are fed up and they would like to divorce. Too many scenarios for me to be very specific in this video, but hopefully I will be generic enough that you can apply the things that I say to pretty much any scenario that you have or you have friends or loved ones going through. So the main thing that happens is our emotions get caught up, and our emotions are delicate things, they're tricky things, and we can think that we will never ever fall into a position of like, I can't even stand that person, or I don't want to be around them, I don't want to eat with them, I don't want to spend time with them, I don't want to talk to them. We have irreconcilable differences. A lot of times that is very emotion driven, and it can come and go, it can fluctuate with various situations in our life, and a lot of times it can feel extremely real, but there not be any major traumatic change that has taken place in the marriage. We know that our emotions can really have their way with us if we didn't rein them in, make them stay in their lane, and talk rationally to ourselves and be realistic about our situations. And sometimes that's all that's needed in a marriage, but other times the problems are extremely severe. There is abuse, there is addiction, there are other mental illnesses and different things that go on, and the problems do seem insurmountable. Coming at this delicate topic as a Christian, I want to just get out right here at the beginning that I think I know pretty well what the Bible says about divorce. I know God frowns upon it. I know it's a very serious issue, and I don't take it lightly. I know that in the Bible, in the New Testament, there really is only one reason that Jesus gives for divorce, and that is infidelity, which is a sexual unfaithfulness, to your spouse. And I also know that the epidemic of addiction and mental illness that runs rampant in our culture today did not take our Lord by surprise. I know that. I know that He was aware that we would come to this place in history. Sadly, when it comes to addiction, there is no part of our marriage that is untouched. There is nothing left sacred, and there's nothing left unscarred. I'm not trying to imply that every single person that has a drug or alcohol problem has cheated on their spouse. The weighty decisions of divorce or separation should be taken very seriously. They should be covered in prayer. They should be covered in godly counsel. But in the end, no one should demand or pressure someone to stay in a marriage where they could possibly be in danger, or where they feel like they're almost at a mental collapse. There is room for separation and regrouping and giving yourself a chance to heal and catch your breath. And that does not always have to happen under the same roof. That can happen with a measure of space between two married people. Unfortunately, even the kindest of addicts and alcoholics are not able to make the right choices that they need to make in the depths of their addiction. The sane person in that marriage needs to be the one to make choices for themselves and for their children, for their safety, their security, their mental health, and their financial stability. Addiction as well as divorce are both huge issues, and they both have unforeseen ripple effects that go out and touch people that we can't even comprehend that it's affecting. But in the end, the person that is in that inner circle, that is married to that person with addiction, they need to make this decision for themselves and for their children. In my particular situation, my children were quite grown. I had one daughter out of the house. I had one daughter graduating, and she moved out of the house shortly after she graduated. And then I had one daughter still in high school. This was during the early years of my husband's addiction. For years after that, the kids were out of the house. And so that is just another huge part of a person's decision. If you have small children, not even necessarily small children, you just have children in the home that are going to be influenced by this addiction, that are going to have to be caught up in the chaos, all of that can play a factor in the decisions that you make, that you're not just making personal decisions for yourself. When I decided to go home to Rob after I had decided to leave him, it was just me. I was just making a personal decision, and I was personally going back home. So those things actually make a big difference, who all this decision is going to impact. When you have small children, you have a lot more things to consider in your decision. But saying that, I want to say that, like I said earlier, you and your children are the ones that are going to have to live every day with the consequences of either choice. And I do want to just say that many times, trading the problems with having a spouse that has addiction in the home, you still are just trading one set of problems for another set of problems. Meaning, if you don't get full custody, then you have to let your children go be with that person unsupervised. You're concerned about them being in an unhealthy situation. There could be many, many points to consider. So I just want you to know, I understand that it's complicated, and anything I say here at this channel that is about my specific situation is in no way trying to inform someone about what they should do. More than anything, it's about guidelines, broad guidelines for personal behavior, for personal growth with or without a person living in the home with you, and about how to have victory for yourself over every situation, and how to survive in spite of any situation that you're in. And so I just want to encourage you that I understand that every situation is complicated, and I know there's a lot of people out there with an opinion about your life and with an opinion about what you should do. And I just want you to know that that is not what I want you to get here. What I want you to get here is encouragement and inspiration and a foundation of biblical principles of how to live your life so that you can have the best life you can in whatever decision you make. I feel like some people feel like they don't have a choice. They have to divorce, or they don't have a choice. They have to stay. And what I want you to say to you is, through much prayer and devotion to God, you can make a decision, and God can help you to maneuver through that decision. I'm also wanting to say, anytime you make a decision, it doesn't have to be permanent. Just like I made the decision to leave, and then I made the decision to return and stay. But that wasn't actually even my first trounce out. I had left Rob once before. I wasn't planning to divorce him, but I had left, and I had these guidelines that you have to meet this criteria for me to go home. He never met that criteria, and after several months, I went home. I think I was separated from him for about 6 months. I've talked about that in other videos. But during that time, I started in Anon. I learned a lot about how to have my own personal growth and my own sanity in spite of what he was doing, and not being so focused constantly on everything he's doing and trying to prevent and trying to control. And so I was able to go home and have a lot of peace and be able to lovingly detach from him. And so I just want you to know that you can make your own choices. You don't have to feel forced. And if you separate and you want to go back, you can. If you decide not to divorce, and at another time you decide that now it's untenable and you can't stay, you can change your mind. Be kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. I had a friend tell me one time, she was like, there's almost no decision that is so traumatic and so permanent that you can't come back from it. If you make a bad decision, you can then do a lot of course correcting. So I just am trying to be very gracious in this video and let you know that my story is not your story. The way I want my story to overlap with your story is with the victory over your circumstances, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, relationally, and with your own personal character, that you can flourish. You can be the person God's called you to be despite the challenging situations in your family. So I'll try to be concise and tell you the story of my divorce journey, for lack of a better thing to call it, my divorce journey with my husband. So there was a point during our marriage, during his addiction, where I had threatened to divorce him if he couldn't or wouldn't stop drinking. And I had made some ultimatums and was planning to leave. And I had prayed about it. I had talked to my children. I had talked to my trusted counselors. I had talked to my siblings and had made this decision quite rationally. And the day came when he stepped over the line and I left, and a series of events occurred, some conversations with my children, and I had decided that I was going to go back home. Not that I had made the wrong choice, but I had made the choice and had lasted long enough, the separation had lasted long enough, and that I was ready to go back home. And what happened, what it felt like to me, the best way that I can explain it, is that God did set me free. I feel like the Lord showed me that I was free. If I wanted to walk away from this marriage, that I was free to do so. But he also told me that if I wanted to stay, if I wanted to go home, I was also free to do that. So even though I had left my husband, I had not started the divorce procedures yet, and I decided to go home, and I had a long conversation with God, and it was like he had said, the door is open. If you want to walk through it, you can. If you want to stay inside your marriage, I will be with you and I will help you. And he has been very faithful to that. So I was really quite content to stay. It didn't mean the pain went away. It didn't mean that Rob didn't still really wear me out, stress me out, worry me. But it did mean that I laid that decision to divorce him away. And I just decided that I had other options that I was going to pursue instead of divorce. But what I want to say to you, if you hear anything in this video, that you'll hear this clearly. Separation or divorce does not necessarily have to be an absolute end to someone's story. I promise you, with all my heart, that even though I was planning to divorce him, and I truly was planning to divorce him, I did really feel like that was just that I was going to try to step out of God's way, that I was going to truly cut the strings that was to Rob's safety net and get out of God's way so that he could do a marvelous work in my husband, and that then we could someday be reunited. So even divorce does not have to be the final word in someone's life, but it can be a tool in order to give the separation that's needed, give God the room he needs to do what he needs to do, and just let that person know that you're not kidding, you're not joking, you're not lying, you're not pretending, that you really are going to move on with your life. You don't have to tell that person that I'm going to divorce you, and if you ever get your act together, I'll be right here waiting for you. I don't recommend that personally. I didn't do that with Rob. But that can still be your heart's desire, that you're going to just still stay single and see what happens. And if the situation comes around, that foundation can be firm again, and that there's anything there to build on, then who's to say God can't reconcile that marriage? I would love to say that God can. I think the only thing that would restrain that being a possibility would be the addiction remaining, the insanity remaining, the illness, the mental illness, the instability, the danger. We simply can't discount what God can do with any tool that he chooses to do it. I know that this is a touchy subject, but I hope that this was helpful. I hope it gave you some food for thought. And if you are interested, you can check out the description box. I've got a little extra for you in there. And if you enjoyed this video, if you feel like it'd be helpful to somebody else, if you would hit the thumbs up button, and if you would share it with a friend. And I'm always praying for the people that watch my videos, and I love you. And until next time, God bless.